Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today is Christmas Day in the United States of America and across the world. In many parts, it is December 26th, otherwise known as Boxing Day. In a little less than 2 minutes, we are going to go silent as we are going to have the remembrance here on this network at 4:58 p.m. Pacific time. It is the exact moment when a 9.3 earthquake struck, otherwise known as the Sumatra Andaman earthquake, or the 2004 Indian Ocean earthquake and tsunami, or the 2004 Boxing Day earthquake and tsunami. Once again, the anniversary will be at 4:58 p.m. Pacific time or 7:58 local time, and we will go silent for a short while to remember the 227,898, approximately, it's estimated, people that perished in 14 countries. So the time is nearing, and we are going to go silent at that moment. I will have details on the earthquake imagery, and the purpose of today's program is to remember that day, 20 years ago today. We are coming up on 4:58 p.m. or 7:58 a.m. local time on December 26th. And we are now there. Approximately, well, it just happened. We remained silent for 1 minute, and I'm going to go over some of the information that I have here. The what happened was harrowing. It was frightening. It was absolutely terrible. The earthquake struck at 7:58 local time. The epicenter was off the west coast of Aceh in northern Sumatra, Indonesia. It was an undersea megathrust earthquake. I'll get into a little bit later what a megathrust quake is, but it is known by the scientific community as a Sumatra Andaman earthquake. It was caused by a rupture along the fault between the Burma plate and the Indian plate. And I'm going to go to that image right now. Forgive me. Right here. This was the epicenter off the coast of Banda Aceh. This is the island of Sumatra. And it was between, as I mentioned, the Burmese plate and the Indian plate. This is the plate of India, and this is Burma. It happened right here. Now, the massive tsunami generated waves up to 30 meters or approximately 100 feet high. And as I mentioned, it was known as the Boxing Day quake after the Boxing holiday or the Asian tsunami. It devastated communities along the surrounding coasts of the entire Indian Ocean, killing an estimated 227,898 people in 14 countries. Violently in Aceh, as you know, I did show that image. It is the primary image that I chose. That's what was left of Banda Aceh after the quake. and it violently in Aceh or Indonesia, and severely in Sri Lanka, Tamil Nadu, India, and Khao Lak, Thailand. And Thailand is north and east of the epicenter, which on this image is highlighted in red. The direct results caused major disruptions to living conditions and commerce in coastal communities and provinces of surrounded countries. It is the deadliest natural disaster of the 21st century and one of the deadliest natural disasters in recorded history, and the worst tsunami disaster in history. It is also the worst natural disaster in the history of Indonesia, Sri Lanka, and Thailand. It was the most powerful earthquake ever recorded in Asia, the most powerful earthquake in the 21st century, and at least the third most powerful earthquake ever recorded in the world since modern seismography began in 1900. It had the longest fault rupture ever observed, between 1,200 and 1,300 kilometers, or 720 miles and 780 miles, respectively, and had the longest duration of faulting ever observed, at least 10 minutes. It caused the planet to vibrate as much as 10 millimeters or zero point 0.4 inches, and also remotely triggered earthquakes as far away as Alaska. Its epicenter was between Similai and mainland Sumatra. And of course, the plight of the affected people and countries prompted a worldwide humanitarian response, with donations totaling more than $14 billion US dollars, equivalent to 23 billion in 2023 figures. Now, just a few of the images that I did show are harrowing. This is Bande Aceh, what happened after. And these were the first responders, the heroes that went to help everyone. These images are absolutely harrowing. And that is a still of the moment the tsunami was to hit in this image. I do not have where this one took place, and I do apologize, but I do have a few YouTube videos, which I will get to shortly, that will remind us of this tragedy and this disaster. As I mentioned, this is the Indian Ocean. The entire Indian Ocean was suffered the effects of this earthquake. I know I did not mark it on the map right here, but kind of like in the center of the image, in that island, geography majors, it is the island of Sumatra. It was in the upper corner. Thailand, you can see, is just above it. To the left is Sri Lanka and India, and to the west is Madagascar and Africa. To the east is the continent of Australia, and of course, the nations of Indonesia. Once again, the anniversary to this event was not 6 minutes ago. It was at 4:58 p.m. local time in Los Angeles, and it was at 7:58 actual local time over there. I should have said my local time, but the local time over there was at 7:58 a.m. Now, for me, it was something that NDB Media basically was created on Christmas Day, 2004. At this exact moment, 20 years ago, I was finalizing the Noriega.biz website that was about to go live that day. Noriega.biz, NDB Media. As I was about to publish the page, I received a text message from USGS that a 9.0 earthquake, at the time, it was 9.0, and then, of course, 9.3, and then it was lowered depending on which seismic scale and country you reference. But for the longest time, it was known as a 9.3 earthquake. But I was about to go live to the world, and I received that text message. Now, the text message, when I look back, and I had it for the longest time, I no longer have that text message. I had an image of it, but it was lost to time and space. like I had all the emails to 9/11. And unfortunately, when my employer decided to clear out our emails, I lost them all. But that text message was not received at work. Of course, it was Christmas Day. And I remember selfishly thinking to myself, wow, a 9.3. What a way to start off a website with that bit of breaking news. And when I received the text message and I hurriedly made a correction to my website and did the headline, "Hi, we're here. Oh, and by the way, there's a 9.3 down in Indonesia." Uh, I still have that page from the website, and I did not have the chance to look for it, but I will find it and hopefully have it for next year. But when we went live after the subsequent text message, the waves were still headed towards uh, Sri Lanka and India. And I have a graphic. I know it's not a good image, but it's there it is. Here you can see where the epicenter was and where the waves spread out after. I received the text somewhere around there. So I, in my tiny part of the world, knew of a massive earthquake. I had no idea what was going to happen. I knew there was going to be a tsunami. I knew there was going to be extensive damage, but at the time I was so engulfed with my own that it didn't dawn on me. These waves traveled the world twice in 24 hours. Or it took the waves to travel the world 24 hours. And the the wave, the earthquake wave traveled the world, I believe, went around the world 4 times. But this is one of the best images that I was able to find on a moment's notice that show how the tsunami waves moved out. And we all saw what happened after the fact. They were frightening, frightening images of what happened. Here it is. This is the arrival time of the waves. See, I knew within 40, 30, it was about 20 to 30 minutes after. So if you look at this wave chart, you can see the epicenter just off the coast of Banda Aceh. This 1 hour, and I know you can't see my mouse right now, but the 1 hour is exactly the arrival time of waves in hours. So you see the red line and the 1 hour. I knew at that point out here in Southern California that this event was taking place. And it is a shame that no one in the Indian Ocean had access to such technology. Now, things have changed in 20 years, but you can see how the waves fanned out. At 2 hours, the island of Sri Lanka in India. At 3 hours, southern India. 4 hours, between 3 and 4 hours, the Maldives. 5 hours, 6 hours, Reunion in the Indian Ocean. At the 5 hour mark, between 4 and 5, I believe Diego Garcia was hit. At 6 hours, 7 hours, the Persian Gulf, Ethiopia, Somalia, Oman. At the 8 hour mark, Madagascar. And then roughly 9 hours, Africa. But after India and Sri Lanka were hit, the world pretty much knew, and other people were able to prepare for it. See, here was the image, which I was not able to make it work here. I mentioned where the earthquake actually happened off the Burmese plate and the Indian Ocean plate. The epicenter is in red, and those were all the aftershocks after that. Unbelievable. This is the USGS shake map. I know it's not a very clear image here. I'm going to see if I can try to get a larger image of the shake map. So these are people that reported having felt the earthquake. And you can tell that in red, it is stronger. Obviously, it was out in the ocean, but yellow is still very strong. And then the blue and the light blue, it was felt by everyone, but less so. But of course, it was Banda Aceh, which was obliterated. That one did not work. The waves, yes. And this is the Indian Ocean. The entire Indian Ocean was hit because of it. But as I mentioned, was caught up in this, and I do apologize. It was at 4:58 p.m. Pacific time when it hit, and I do remember at the 5 o'clock hour, I was working on my website. I was in the last moments of finally having this website ready to go, and the website went live before 6 p.m. So it was still within the first hour of the event taking place. As a little bit more of information, the tsunami heights in Sumatra off the coast of Aceh were between 15 and 30 meters, or 49 to 98 feet. It's unreal. Absolutely unreal. The island country of Sri Lanka, located approximately 1,100 miles west or 1,700 kilometers west from Sumatra, was ravaged by the tsunami around 2 hours after the earthquake. The tsunami first struck the eastern coastline and subsequently refracted around the southern part of Sri Lanka, Dandra Head. So what they're saying is, if you could imagine the island, the waves refracted around almost like a whiplash, or a whip, if you will, coming back around. It was unreal. The refracted tsunami waves then inundated the southwestern part of Sri Lanka after some of its energy was reflected from the impact with the Maldives. So, in one of the images I was able to show you, when the waves went out and hit the Maldives, some of them refracted back. And that's what hit the western side of Sri Lanka. So, I'll see if I can go back to that image right now that I had a moment ago that can show the activity of the waves and the propagation of the waves. I think it may be, but it's a small image. And again, I do apologize. There it is. See, here are the Maldives. See it? Yeah, you can actually see it. The waves come back. This is Sri Lanka right there. And there's the refraction. So these waves came in on the west side and hammered Sri Lanka as well. These waves were moving at approximately 300 miles per hour, and it was just absolutely unreal what happened. But my purpose of today's program is to remember that event 20 years ago today, where over 224,000 people lost their lives. 227,000, almost 228. As I mentioned earlier, the worst disaster in the 21st century and the worst disaster tsunami wise since we began recording earthquakes from the early 1900s. So now I have talked about earthquakes quite a bit, and I've mentioned that, for one, I'm not going to say the current era, but in Southern California, everyone was jolted awake in 1987. That was my first real significant earthquake. It was a 5.9 earthquake that hit on a Thursday morning at 7:40 something, if I remember correctly. That one I actually surprisingly don't remember. It was originally a 5.9, but it takes USGS to collect information from around the world, from all the seismic measuring stations. And when all the information came in, they eventually settled on the Whittier quake being a 5.4. Everyone that remembers it as 5.9. Well, that's the original estimate. And they always say that the original or the estimate is 5.9. Now, the curious thing of the 2004 earthquake, as I mentioned, it was a 9.3. It was initially documented as having a moment magnitude, and I apologize, a moment magnitude of 8.8. The United States Geological Survey has its estimate at 9.1. Hiro Konami of the California Institute of Technology estimates that it was a magnitude 9.2. The most recent studies estimate the magnitude to be a 9.3, which is my point. This is one of the few earthquakes that was rounded down but has maintained its strength. Now, the whole concept of the magnitude 9 and a 9.1, the difference of the power, it's I forget it's not a logic, it's not a it's I forget what the scale, it's not a numeric scale per se, but the difference between a 9.0 and a 9.1 is the 9.1 is 10 times more energy than the 9.0. Not 9 to 90, 9 to 9.1. And then the 9.2 is again 10 times more. So the difference between a 9 and a 10, there's never been a 10 measured. Never. The largest or the most devastating earthquake was in 1960, May 25th, 1960, Chile, 9.5 earthquake. The numbers are just unreal. I'm going to see if I can contact someone from USGS so they can give us, they're the real smart people. I have studied this my entire life. I went to school, but I do not pretend to hold any official designations, any degrees in seismicity, in the study of earthquakes and tectonics. I don't. I did go to school. I did take some courses, but I do not pretend. I am not an expert. But I have studied this my entire life. And I do know some basics, but I always tell everyone I'm not an expert. I am giving my opinion, and I'm right most of the time. Sorry. That I should make a joke of this, ladies and gentlemen. It's 5:18. It is now 20 minutes and 20 years after the event. I did not mean to insult anyone by making a joke of that. But I did want to take a few moments to remind myself and everyone else of this event. And I will continue to cover historical events as they happen over the years. And if you have any comments you wish to join me, please let me know. But 228,000 people died that day. It is something that we should remember. And we did take a moment of silence when this program began. So I thank you for joining me. I hope that everyone continues to enjoy their Christmas Day and Boxing Day for the rest of the world as this program is live. And I wish you the very best. We will have an earthquake preparedness, a disaster preparedness program early next year. When, I do not know. I will be contacting several agencies to see if they're interested, and they will be talking about the precautions that you can take before this happens. We in America, prior to Katrina, knew that we had to be on our own for 3 days while we learned what happened with Katrina. It's not 3 days anymore, folks. It could be even up to 7 or more. And you have to plan for that. And if you're thinking about doing it now, it's 1 gallon of water per person per day. That's 7 times 4 is 28 gallons. That's 5 bottles of water. And then you have to rotate the water so it doesn't become stagnant. And then it's also a good idea to have those pills where you can turn stagnant water into potable water. I have to get back to all my terms. I have the emergency manuals that I was given through my employer. They've been updated. I will share them. But this is a reminder that this could happen at any moment, at anywhere in the world. And I will discuss a mega thrust earthquake on Monday Night America, because the United States of America has a mega thrust threat on its doorstep up in Seattle. And the last one that hit was on January 28th, 1700 at 9 p.m. And it was a 9.0. I will direct you to the documentary. It is absolutely incredible how they found out the time and the date. Absolutely incredible. Science, folks, because it's fact. Facts don't care about your feelings. Yes, I am a man of science, but I'm also a man of faith. I know some people consider that a contradiction, but they don't cross as far as I'm concerned. But I thank you for spending time with me again, and I hope you're all well. And start thinking about making preparations. It starts with the first aid kit. Seriously, it's the first thing you need to do. Good pair of shoes, either boots by your bedside. My family, we all have boots. Gosh darn it, we all have boots. Unfortunately, not by the bedside, but in the closet. But we have them. And we have a good jacket. We don't have a go bag. I've been trying to assemble that, but everyone can reach for their most important bits of clothes right then and there. So we ourselves have begun. Canned foods, folks, like tuna, that stays for a while. I don't know about Spam, but I think it does. Once you open it, it's done. But canned goods that are easy to open, those are good. Crackers. And you see, I'm already doing the emergency preparedness kit. In addition to all that stuff, it also helps to have, if you have pets, dog food and cat food, birds, whatever, you need to have food for them as well. But if you have children, when you prepare everything, it's a good thing to have some candies like Hershey's bars or whatever. And I know if you're diabetic, all right, I'm sorry, but you get the point. It's good to have feel-good items as well. But you want to get dried nuts. You want to get stuff that will hold for a while. See, I've done this. I was a safety officer in many of my jobs. This is what I do. I have a fire extinguisher right by my desk here. The desk behind me has a fire extinguisher. The other desk has one, and the other one. And then there's one mounted on the wall. But I might be in violation because there's no arrow. But there is a sign that says fire. I'm not kidding. I have a sign that says, but there is no arrow pointing down towards it. But I do have one. And I have an AM radio, which if it goes away, I think we're screwed. I rotate the batteries regularly. It takes work. You need to have flashlights. We have them in the kitchen. We don't have them in each bedroom. And you see, I have to do that. So, folks, this is a good way. This is a good reminder for us to prep, because we could be on our own for up to 7 days. Look at what happened with the hurricane. That was 3 days, 4 days minimum. That was just a hurricane. Imagine an event like this striking America in the New Madrid area. Yeah, folks. That earthquake has given up some in the 8.0 range, and no one along the Mississippi River is ready for that. Nor is Seattle. They're beginning to change their codes to prepare for earthquake, but no one knew as the city built up. That was a Southern California thing. And then they discovered that there are earthquakes. And the mega thrust earthquake, it's because of the type of fault it is. I was going to talk about this on Monday. You know the plates on the world. The megathrust is a subduction zone, or it's in a subduction zone. The North American plate, if I'm looking north, is here, and the the Juan de Fuca plate is here. What is happening is the Juan de Fuca plate is subducting under the North American plate. And by doing so, the Juan de Fuca plate is basically pulling on the North American plate. And eventually, that's a megathrust quake. and it's going to happen off the coast of Seattle. They may have 15 to 20 minutes warning for tsunami. And when that baby hits so close, it's going to be 100 feet tall, maybe even greater. That close. Practice the drills, practice evacuation routes, set up a contact out of state so that you can all contact, because we know that when a disaster happens, phone lines go down, but text messages continue to work once the system gets back up. But consider that if you have to communicate, text messages. That's important. I can't believe I did an emergency preparedness right now, but there is so much more. Protect your documents in plastic bags, sealable bags. You see how I'm stuttering, sorry. So there's a lot of things that you can do. We're going to talk about the mega thrust quake next week. I have some more science stuff to go over, but we're going to do an earthquake preparedness or a natural disaster quake or a natural disaster event preparedness sometime in January. It's the best I can tell you right now. The dogs are telling me my time is done. I'm done. I hope you're all doing well. Preparedness. You're going to be on your own. Yeah, your neighbors may be there, but they have to worry about themselves too. Be prepared, because help may be up to 7 days away or more. Thanks for stopping in. We'll see you guys on the other side.